Hi. You know, there's nothing I love more about Halloween than getting all cosy under a blanket, turning on the TV and watching some classic Halloween movies.
I'm looking for a Mr. Rogers and a Mr. Dew. The detectives?
Sorry, what's that? You're saying that Scooby-Doo doesn't count as a Halloween movie? Because it's not at all scary? Well, I think you can go and fuck yourself. When I was a kid, I was scared of pretty much everything. And so I couldn't watch any, real Halloween-related movies. Instead, I was stuck with pretty much just this. What? You're saying that I sounded like I was a wuss when I was a kid? Well, that's a good point, well made. But if I might rebut... Anyway, now that guy's gone, let's celebrate the month of Spooks and Spoops by looking at a kid-friendly Scooby-Doo board game, and then ruin the kid-friendly aspect by swearing the entire way through. Let's fucking go. When I was little, I was scared of pretty much everything. I couldn't play games like Tomb Raider because of the skeletons, I used to get scared of Jurassic Park, and I even had occasional trouble sleeping after an episode of The Simpsons Treehouse of Horrors. Obviously that's a far call from the brave and manly thing you see standing before you. Why are you guys laughing? Either way, I may be into horror these days, but as a kid, the best I could do was stuff like Scooby-Doo. It was filled with monsters, ghosts, and other creepy things, but it was so low budget that I didn't even get scared. I mean, look at this. I enjoyed Scooby-Doo so much that I watched the live-action movie and still to this day enjoy it, even if the jokes suck and they somehow made Rowan Atkinson seem like he isn't funny. I enjoyed it so much that it was one of the first movies that I watched with the commentary track on. In fact, I think the commentary track actually makes this movie a whole bunch better. Rambling about the movie aside, I was recently visiting my in-laws, and by recently I mean in 2019, when I came across this in a charity shop. It's a Scooby-Doo Thrills and Spills game. More importantly, it's a Scooby-Doo electronic talking Thrills and Spills board game. Looking at the back of the box, this thing actually kind of reminds you of Tornado Rex, but with characters from Scooby-Doo instead of this Tasmanian Devil ripoff. You have to move up this track towards the mystery machine by spinning a spinner. As you go, you are occasionally attacked by what I can only assume is Old Man Jenkins on PCP. This thing actually looks pretty cool. Come on, let's crack this fucker open. Well, that was ominous. In the box, you get one board, a spinner, 4 plastic legs, 1 plastic ring, 1 mystery mobile, 8 player pieces, 3 monster cards, a spinning top, an electric talking spinner, and several plastic tombstones. See? I told you it was spooky. Oh, and 1 set of instructions, if you can call a single sheet of paper a set of anything. The point of the game is to be the first player to get both of their pieces from the bottom of the board to the mystery machine which is waiting at the top of the hill. As you go, you're being chased by 3 different spooks. Before we do any of that though, we have to get this thing set up, and so comes the first hurdle. The first thing you're probably going to notice is just how cheap this thing is. The printing quality is fine on the board and it looks pretty clear even if the art is as basic as it comes, but it's just poorly constructed. When folded, the board is misaligned and sort of lists off to the one side a little bit. Next, you've got the problem of these plastic legs. They're used to raise the board onto a slope, so that when you use the spinner it actually goes down somewhere. The problem is that these board edges aren't rounded off at all, so each time you play the game, you're going to be doing damage to it and causing it to fray. Once you've got the clips on, you just attach these graveyard-infested mountains down the board, then attach the mystery machine to the top and a little purple ring next to it. The ring is the place where you set off the spinner, and these mountains help to steer the top in the right direction. Each player picks a colour and then takes the 2 pieces in that colour, and takes it in turns spinning the spinner and moving their pieces up the slope towards the mystery machine. You can only choose one of your pieces at a time to move though, so you can't split it between both. Yeah, there's something off about these miniatures. As you guys can see, the moulding's fine, but the aggressive colour choice kind of makes it hard to pick out some of the small detail. Speaking of aggressive colours, you guys think it's weird they didn't make Shaggy green? Like, his most distinctive colour is green because of the shirt he wears, but for some reason they went with radioactive fucking orange. Like an explosion at the Cheeto factory. Plus, these figurines just feel horrible. They're too slippy, too smooth, kind of shiny. And the plastic's so flimsy, I feel like they just melt if you looked at them wrong. Like I said before, each player gets 2 pieces. But since there are 5 members of the gang, that means there is a mismatch somewhere here. So, each player gets a human member of the team, and they all get a Scooby-Doo clone as well. When you and your genetic experiments gone wrong spin the spinner, that's the non-electric spinner thing, there are a few things that can happen. Most of the time you're going to get a number. You then pick one of your 2 pieces and move that many spaces ahead. If you land on an arrow, you can move into one of these safe spots in the mountains, or kick someone out if they're already in there and take their place. If the spinner lands on join the gang, you have to rob an off license. Ha! Street crime joke. Not really, you actually have to move to this space in the middle of the board, even if you were already past it. If you land on join the leader, you move to be on the same space as the person who's furthest up the board. Finally, if the spinner lands on the monsters, one of the other players secretly picks one of the 3 monster cards. You then wind up the spinner and let it rip. As it goes down the mountain, any piece knocked over by it has to go all the way back down to the bottom of the board, even if they were right by the finishing line. Then the person who released the spinner has to guess which monster was behind the attack, and if they guess correctly, they get to move ahead 7 steps. You also go through this whole process if you land on one of the monster spaces on the game board as well. You know, weirdly I don't hate the monster picking element that's added to the spinning. It kind of adds a mystery thing to the board game to make it more like this show, because without that it might as well have been based on any other childhood property that was popular. This game is about as basic as they come. You're literally just rolling, or in this case I guess spinning, a number and then moving that many spaces. There's no strategy to it at all. The thing that really brings it down though is just how low effort it all feels. The rules are a single double-sided sheet of paper and they don't even really explain anything. For instance, it doesn't say where to go if you're told to catch up to the leader and they happen to be in a safe space. It also doesn't provide a diagram of setting the thing up either, telling you instead to rely on the image on the front of the box. It's not like the setup was complicated, but it just kind of feels lazy not to have included a diagram. Especially when the front cover is so... well... This cover is just as low effort as the rules are. Like, look at the colour balancing, the design's terrible. It doesn't even use an image of the game for the cover. I mean, that would be fine if you went for a full art cover like most modern board games do, but having this weird border around the edge just looks kind of gross. The biggest problem with this game, other than just being as boring as hell, is that the spinning top doesn't really work properly. Half the time it gets caught on these little plastic hills. Either that or gets stuck in the ring at the top of the board. The worst is when it gets stuck on the lip in the centre of the board itself. This is why games like Tornado Rex used a moulded board, no lips get caught on and no frayed edges from cheap cardboard. You also don't have the problem of the spinner just flying randomly off the edges like you do here. In fairness, the rules do tell you to slightly tilt the board to one side using the different height slots in the legs, but it doesn't really help that much. Also, if you overturn this thing, it will bounce off and go straight through your TV if you're not careful. And it's pretty easy to overturn since the rules don't even tell you how far to turn it in the first place. And the big selling point, the thing's so important they put it on the cover in big ass bold letters. Why, whenever you press the button to release the top from the spinner, Scooby-Doo says a phrase. One of 3 whole phrases that you won't be able to hear over the sound of the spinner going butt-fuck crazy. How late on a Friday afternoon do you want to bet it was when they came up with this shit? Unless you are psychotically obsessed with owning every single piece of Scooby-Doo merch that you can get your hands on, then I would avoid this game like the plague. It's basically just a less interesting version of Ludo with extra steps, and no amount of potentially lethal spinning tops that sound like a bit crunch Scooby-Doo are going to make it any better. Well, that was a waste of fucking time. Now, if you'll leave me in peace, I'll get back to watching my not at all scary Halloween movie. Oh, CG's so badly done. Oh, so that's where that went. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you're having a spooky Halloween, even if trick-or-treating has been cancelled this year. Let's be honest, we buy most of the candy for ourselves anyway. Right, if it's still the day before Halloween when you're watching this, then you might be able to catch this charity event I'm taking part in tomorrow. Me and a bunch of other streamers are doing a 24-hour stream in aid of autism. Follow the links in the description to find out where you can watch and when the different streamers will be on. If you liked this video, then subscribe for more, and of course share it with all of your friends. All of them, literally all of them. Seriously, do it. Please help me. I think there's something to do with the bell as well, but I'm not really 100% sure. You can now also support future videos and streams by subscribing to our Patreon account. I'm going to go now. I have a lot of Halloween plans, like watching Night of the Living Dead again, and passing out into a sugar coma.